Welcome back to Raised by Giants live discussion. Good to see everyone. Welcome everyone in the chat, any moderators and or channel members out there, and to anyone that's listening to the replay, thanks for joining us. And if you're listening on audio only, welcome and thanks for tuning in on the audio only, because the show is also a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. So follow the show over there. Also, we are a viewer supported show. We don't have any sponsorships, advertising, or affiliate programs. It's just me. I'm the only one that makes this show possible. I book the guests, I make the content, I make the short videos. I don't use AI to make anything. So it's really a lot to take on as one person, but I keep trucking along and doing it for you guys. So I really appreciate the help and the support. PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description. And the easiest way is to just send over super chats or super stickers. That way I can give you a shout out as we are live. Show some love and support for the channel and send in some super chats. Channel memberships are also available and are a great way to help support the show monthly. And by becoming a channel member, you get access to bonus episodes. There will be a brand new channel members only episode dropping soon, so you're not going to want to miss that one. So with that down, we have with us today, making his triumphant return, here to talk with us about his brand new documentary, Doors of Perception, Chris Mathieu. Welcome back to the show. How's it going, my friend?
Ryder, thank you so much for having me back. It's been a little while. I'm ready to once again get weird with you, baby.
That's right. Always getting weird. So what inspired you to make this documentary, and what inspired you to name it The Doors of Perception? Because perception is a really interesting word, I think, in our perceptions of, since we've been doing the show. I mean, my thoughts and ideas and beliefs have changed rapidly for the past 5 years since I've doing this. And how long have you been in this space and doing your show, Chris?
Forbidden Knowledge News started as a Facebook blog in like 2014 or 2015. And then like 2016 was a YouTube channel. But I started, digging into all this stuff really about 2012. And it was all downhill from there. So I've been in here for a little bit.
Yeah, so roughly around 10 years or so.
Mm.
How has your perceptions, before we get into the documentary here, how has your perceptions of the things that you cover on your show changed since the very beginning?
Man, I can't keep a single perspective for probably more than a day. This shit is constantly evolving and changing, and based on new information and ideas and inspiration and intuition that I have, it's constantly evolving and molding. So it has changed dramatically from when I first started doing this. A lot of the stuff has come full circle and just kind of validated my original beliefs, but a lot of it's just shot off into all directions. There's so many layers to a lot of this that it seems almost impossible to get to the real heart of any certain conspiracy or these paranormal events or high impact events that occur, but we try to get as much information as possible. There's a lot, as you know, a lot of muddying of the waters in the past few years, and it's become very difficult to find good information. But we do have our go-tos as far as great researchers that we can rely on, that we have been able to for the past decade or so, that we can always check back with, just to compare notes, see if any of the information that we're getting still matches up, still resonates. We can do that with the original texts and books and authors and classic researchers that have presented information over the years. But we just really have to pass it through our perception filter. And like you said, perception is important. I think it's everything. I think that all these experiences, from paranormal to UFOs, abduction, near-death experiences, psychedelic experiences, meditation, they're going to all pass through the perception filter. Where we're at in our lives, where we're at emotionally, spiritually, mentally, how healthy we are, the way we view things, the way we understand things. And that is going to heavily dictate the outcome and how we feel and interact with any certain experience that occurs. And Doors of Perception, the title really was stolen from Aldous Huxley's classic book, but it's more of a reinterpretation, and I'm basically stealing that name because it has tiny bits and pieces of maybe some ideas that Huxley presented about psychedelics and some of the connections that we can make between synchronicities and certain events, but I really took it to a completely different level and added my own life experiences, the people that I presented in the film, the amazing researchers and guests that I've had, and I combined it with everything that I've learned over the past decade, my understandings, my beliefs, but I presented in a really non-biased way, really asking questions and not saying that this is the way things are, but could this be the way things are? And I think all the presenters that I featured in there did a really great job of doing that very thing. And that's what we explore. We explore consciousness, but through the lens of these experiences, paranormal experiences, altered states, near death, uh, contact, extraterrestrial contact experiences, and the synchronistic events that occur in our daily lives that seem to tie these things together, lead us in certain directions, and even tell a story, it seems, at some time. So that's what the film explores, and super excited about it. And the presenters that were participating in the film and shared their ideas and insights and research. So that is where the birth of Doors of Perception came from.
Where can people watch this right now? Because you have a pre-release copy available. So where can people watch this immediately?
You go to our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. Right on that front page, you'll see the Doors of Perception, the front picture of the film. You click on the link right there, and you can either rent it. They have a link to our Vimeo site. You can rent it for $2.99 or purchase the 1080p version for $7. You can even get a 4K version for $12. And this, like you said, it's a special edition pre-release version. There's going to be a few things that may be slightly different, a few additions that may not go into the film that will be going on streaming platforms in a few months. But yeah, it's a great way to help support us and a great way to help promote the film before it hits streaming platforms. And the trailer is also available on YouTube and Rumble on our website as well. So very easily accessible, and I believe you'll have some links for everybody.
Yes, I have the link posted to the website where you can order the pre-release copy of Doors of Perception. And I'm always into helping support independent people because I think that that's where the industry is moving toward. Independent filmmakers, independent media, just in general. We've seen this gigantic boom. So who all is in this documentary? I saw Lindsay Sharman in there. I saw Trey Hudson, Brandon Thomas. Who else did you have in there?
See if I can remember everybody. You got Daniel Rekshan. He is a dream expert. He's the chief dream officer at Dreamwell. Basically, they do research and education into lucid dreaming techniques and beyond, basically shamanic dreaming, getting information from your dreams, even learning how to control and interact with things in your dreams. And he was one of the experts I had on to discuss the dreams section in the movie. Like you said, we had Brandon Thomas. Then we had Vicki Joy Anderson. She is author of They Only Come Out at Night, which is about sleep paralysis, her experiences, and the hundreds of sleep paralysis experiencers that she interviews and compares the experiences and gives her own spin and research into the possibilities of what's happening with that. She was a great guest. Then we have Carlos Tanner. He is founder of the Ayahuasca Foundation. He kicks off the section on psychedelics in the film. We have Adam Butler, author of Butler's DMT Field Guide. He's great. He was actually a last minute addition to the film. Thank you so much for doing that. And then let's see, we've got Karen Wilkinson, who is a ET abduction experiencer. She had very horrific abduction experiences from a very young age, which oddly enough involve military. So there's very interesting correlations with that as well, which we kind of touch on in the film. Part 2, we're going to get to more of some nefarious things that may be occurring with our military and some of the black projects. So then we have the great Trey Hudson. He is a former U.S. Army intelligence officer, paranormal researcher, great friend of ours. He frequents your show quite often. Amazing guy. Let's see, we've got Lindsay Sharman. We have, I'm probably forgetting somebody, and if I am, I truly apologize. Dan Liss, who, Lindsay Sharman, I'm sorry, she is a psychic, intuitive author, a healer, spiritual healer. She was great. She presented some great information on near-death experiences and synchronicities. And Dan Liss, who is also a spiritual healer, intuitive psychic, who was also presenting information on near-death experiences and synchronicities. And I remember, last but not least, the great Jim Willis, who has passed away, and the film was dedicated to him. He was a wonderful man, a great researcher, and he brought so much to the spiritual and conspiracy fields. And like I said, the film was dedicated to him. He brought some wonderful insights into the near-death synchronicities section on the film. And I believe that is it. My beautiful wife, Jennifer Halcomb, helped with the videography, some of the filming, some of the quality control, and overall, assisted with everything along the way. So thank her so much. And that's about it, besides my dog, Sally, who is there for support.
Gotta have her there for support.
Yeah.
How did you juggle all of those people being in the documentary? Because I had a rough time just making a Clockwork Shining with 6 people. And I feel like the more people that you have in your movie, the more strenuous and more rough it is to actually make. Do you feel like that you split up all? We're getting into some technical
that's
things
fine.
here with filmmaking, but do you feel like that you split them up like evenly and they had a good amount of runtime? Like how did you decipher to do?
I think they each had an equal amount of time, more or less. There were a couple, like the last minute addition, Mr. Butler, who probably had the least amount of time, but it was still, I believe, very fair enough to get some great information and his own personal story out there. We're going to feature even more in part 2. There's going to be some of the same people returning to provide more information, because we had so much content just from the first production that it's going into part 2. But we're also going to cycle in some new people. And yes, it was extremely difficult trying to manage that and storyboard everything. And that's why it took me probably around a year to get this one finished, as opposed to around 6 months for the first film we did, Occult Louisiana. But it really, I think I put it together in a great coherent way, and it flows perfectly. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And this has all been an experiment for me, really, especially the first one. I was never expecting for it to do anything that it did, and I'm blessed and grateful that it did. So I learned so much from making that first film, and I learned so much from making this one. The next one will be even better. As you know, those skills, just that's what comes along with making these things, because you get some practice, boy. You get some practice.
You definitely get practice. And yeah, the same with mine with JFKX. Learned a lot making that one, and then it all transferred and made it even better in a Clockwork Shiny. So, what do you mentioned sleep paralysis there? Have you ever had sleep paralysis before?
I haven't. I featured myself in the film. I did a little reenactment and everything. But yeah, it's pretty funny. Wait till you see that. But yeah, I did. I had sleep paralysis, and it was around. Ooh, it was probably right when I was first starting to kind of have my awakening and just be interested in the weird shit that I'm interested in again, around 2012, 2013. But it was also when I was going through my divorce, and it was a very dark time in my life, and I was having trouble sleeping at night. So I would take naps during the day, and this never really happened at night for some reason. It was when I would try to take naps during the day, and it was like a typical sleep paralysis experience that you hear about. I couldn't move. My eyes were, it seemed like they were open and open enough to see the room. Things were a little hazy, and I know I was awake. I could feel things, but I couldn't move my body. And I would see shadows walking around. I'd look over, and it looked like there was someone walking down the hallway, but you couldn't make out anything. And it did just look like a shadow. But eventually it would turn into 2 or 3 people walking past. And the last few times it was like a shadow people party in my kitchen. There was like a bunch of shadows just walking around in my kitchen. Very strange. Not really threatening. I did feel like terrified because I knew there was nobody in my house. And then the very last time, one of the shadow people actually walked into my room and was kind of circling the bed. And I heard this extremely loud banging noise coming from the ceiling, and I could see my ceiling fan, and I thought my ceiling was going to explode on me. It was like, boom, it was vibrating my whole room and me. And I thought, I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. I got terrified, and eventually I would be able to just pull myself out of it. I have no idea what that was. We could talk about some of the theories that were presented, but after I got through my divorce, got through to a better state of mind, that shit just stopped, and I haven't experienced any of it since. So again, we can go back to that perception thing. I'm in a shitty state of mind, having these sleep paralysis experiences. As soon as I get things better in my life, they go away. Is there a link? I think so.
To anyone that's ever experienced sleep paralysis, I've experienced it twice, just like you. It's a very scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the most terrifying things I think that has ever happened. And it feels very real. And one of mine was the first one, I didn't see anything. The second one, I did see something, and it was like this shadow that was in had like a top hat on. I haven't really talked about it a lot because there's so much, nonsense about the Hat Man, and it's kind of become like a very.
It is interesting that there's a hat archetype, but yeah, go on.
And the second time is when I seen the Hat Man shadow. It was in my room, and it was like hanging from the ceiling. So it had like a noose around its neck, and the shadow was like hanging from the ceiling, and it had a top hat on, and it was like shaking its head like really fast. Huh. And I was like laying flat on my back. The first time that I ever experienced it, I was laying on my right side, and there was what felt like 2 hands that was placed on my back, one on the center of my back and the other one on the left side of my back, and I couldn't move at all. I could just look at the dresser, like not the dresser, but the closet, because I was what was right in front of my vision. And the only thing that snapped me out of that was that my roommate came, opened the door, and then I just jumped out of the bed, and I took a giant breath because I was almost hyperventilating because I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
Like it was like almost like it was sucking the breath out of me.
Oh wow.
And yeah, luckily he came into the room and knocked it off or whatever. But very, very strange experiences there, and I don't really know what to think of it because a lot of people are like it's demons, and then some people have that. There's actually a show. I can't remember the name of the show, but I watched the first couple of episodes, and it was basically about sleep paralysis. And
Oh, Nightmare or something like that.
yeah, it was. It's like a newer show. It might have been on Netflix or something, but it's
Yeah, I
like
think
this lady that puts something on her ceiling. You know what I'm talking about? To like let her know that the dream isn't real, or like the scenario or the sleep paralysis isn't
Yeah, I've
real.
seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good show. I don't remember too much about it, but the theories that were presented in the film are paranormal in nature mostly. I don't claim to have any idea what's happening. The presenter that we had, Vicky Joy Anderson, she's had sleep paralysis experiences her whole life. She still does, but she also interviews dozens, hundreds of people who have the experiences. She writes about it. She does look at it through a Christian lens. She does believe that these are nefarious entities. She believes that our state of mind is attracting these negative, what you would call non-human intelligences during that hypnagogic state, because our consciousness we are open to it. We're a step outside our normal perception, what some would call the astral realms, then that these intelligences reside there, that there's actually an ecosystem of life forms just beyond our perception that you would consider negative and positive, that can present themselves, interact with us, affect us in different ways when we're in these not only sleep paralysis, dreams, altered states, meditative states, even daydreams. There's certain drugs that can do it. There's certain places that can put people into different states of mind and of awareness, that and within those states there's some strange shit that can happen. And it's theorized for sleep paralysis by Vicky Joy that these entities are basically performing some sort of astral or out of body abduction, where they are attempting to affect your way of thinking, keep you in a negative state of mind. There could be a variety of quote unquote agendas that these beings have for the people that they affect during sleep paralysis. So that's explored, and her story is explored. But she says what's most interesting about all of it, she started documenting people's sleep paralysis experiences over a decade ago, probably, yeah, almost 15 something years ago. And she said that the experiences are collectively changing in a somewhat similar direction. She said it used to be the shadow people and, your more classic entities, the Hat Man that would appear, things like that. But she said now they are like technological beings. They're appearing more as people are seeing cyborgs and robots and machine elves and all these more like technologically based entities that are presenting themselves, oddly enough, during sleep paralysis experiences. She's currently writing her, I think, third book about this. They only come out at night 3, but in part 2 she does touch on that a good bit. It's very fascinating to hear the similarities in people's experience as relates to that, but I couldn't tell you, man. It's interesting though.
Well, when you look at the state of consciousness and the way that people fear certain things, and the way that these types of experiences evolve over time, you can see that track with the UFO phenomenon as well. what people fear, they normally then relate to something otherworldly, right? When people are fearing nuclear devastation, the aliens that are contacting them are telling them that that we need to lay down our nuclear arms. You know what I mean? It's that same type of when we're in fear of the environment, the aliens are all of a sudden like, you need to clean up your environment. When we're in fear of World War III, they'll be like, oh, you guys need peace, right? It's like this. It's almost like a reflection in something that we want to hear coming back to us, because we're not hearing it from the people that are in quote unquote in charge, so we get it from this otherworldly type source. And that's kind of like what you're explaining now, is that it's changed from the supposed organic type of entity, and now it's getting more into a technological type of entity, which is exactly where our society is moving toward with AI, robotics. So it's like our perception.
Man, you're getting to the heart of the movie right here. This is it. Yeah, this is basically what we explore, the collective, not only the collective, but where the individual is at. We have the collective experience, which moves with the collective mind, where we're at technologically, our understanding of UFOs and whatever these non-human intelligences may be. And as we move into the technological age, the phenomena becomes more technological, more sci-fi. And it's across the board, but the individual experience, it really passes through that person's individual perceptual lens. So they're going to have that layer on top of it. So say the two people are essentially, if you could call it, having the same experience, but one person is being attacked by a demon with a hairy dildo, and then the other one is being massaged by a beautiful angel. But essentially it's supposed to be the same experience, but the person being attacked with the demon dildo has been traumatized recently, or they're in a bad relationship, or there's drugs involved, and then the person who's being massaged by an angel is, love and light and having beautiful times in their life. And this seems to be across the board with people's state of mind versus the experiences that they're having. And, I couldn't really get down to the fine details of each person's life and experience and tell you 100% if they were in a bad state of mind when they had this experience. But if you look at the overall phenomena and the hundreds and hundreds of people that we've both talked to, we're coming to almost the same conclusion here, that whatever is happening is going to be based on our collective and individual perception. What that trigger is the fascinating question. What the intelligence behind it is, if it's just us, if we are producing it, or if there is external factors or external origination. That is some of the bigger questions that we get into as well, but that's really the meat and potatoes of the film.
Yeah, and I think what you're explaining there is this bifurcation. You remember back, started in the late 2000s, where the spiritualists and the gurus and everybody was like, there's going to be this split from old earth into new earth, but there's going to be like, these people over here are going to be living in like a golden age of humanity and everything's going to be great and awesome, and then these people over here are going to be like living in the dark ages. They were half right, but the way that they explained it is completely wrong. But we're like essentially living during that period right now. Like we have that right now. Like there's a section of the population that is like, this is the best time ever to be alive. And then another section of the population is like, this is the worst time to be alive. This is going to be tyranny. This is going to be a dictatorship, right?
Yeah.
It's like exactly what they were explaining before, but they just had the concept and like the idea completely wrong. They were looking at it as like an actual like 5D like ascension. You know, they spiffed it up and made it seem all magical and everything.
Now you're getting into the synchromistic aspects and the incredible, amazing events that can happen based off of self-fulfilling prophecies and collective self-fulfilling prophecies based on our fears, based on what we understand about any given event or possible future event or possible state of mind of humanity, like you were just discussing. The seeds are planted, and we first started hearing about this a long time ago, and it seems like these seeds they tend to be able to self-replicate, and in a sense it's like a parasite. It takes over the minds of the collective, and it begins to, in a sense, cause these events to manifest and come to fruition, because it's like a constant reminder. It's constant information in the very back of your mind, these possibilities that keep popping up based on our perception of events that unfold. Like, if, for example, Trump and the apocalypse, Trump and the Antichrist. You don't know how many times I've had guests that recently that believe that this administration represents the mark of the beast, the return of the Antichrist, based on biblical fulfillment. And they can name you these incredible prophecies that have correlations that, if you look at it the right way, it'd be like, damn, that's spot on. We're in the apocalypse. He's the Antichrist. But if you have a different
how much
perspective,
do you have to squint your eyes? You have to squint your eyes really hard and then tilt your head sideways.
well, here's the thing. It depends on your perspective at the time. You do have the opposite that I've noticed, where people have Trump hypnosis, where this man can do nothing wrong and they see nothing bad that the administration is doing. And then you have the extreme opposite, which was what I was just saying. But again, individual perception. But we have these collective strange events that occur based on where the collective is at. And what you're saying could be very true just because of the split that we're seeing and the representation I was just saying in the example of Trump. We have very different mindsets that are split right down the middle right now. And it's pretty incredible. It's more divided than I think I've ever seen it.
But that's the way that it's always been. People are never, everyone is not going to be happy with anybody. It doesn't matter who it is up there. There's going to be a section of the population that is not happy and is going to try and correlate all these things to the most negative side. And then there's going to be the people that's going to try and correlate it to the most positive side. Right? If it was the opposite way around and Kamala Harris became president, there would be the exact set of people that are saying that Trump is the worst is going to be saying that Kamala is the best, and the people that saying that Kamala is the best is going to flip flop. That's the way that it's always been, and that's the way that it's always going to continue to be, unless something radically changes. And I think that the only way that we get out of that system is with a one world order. That's the only way that you get out of this this rock that we've, this corner that we've backed ourselves into. But
how many emails have you gotten that say that you're CIA, you're a deep state, because that statement that you just made?
All the time. I get it all the time. There'll be people in the comment section of this, but that's the only way logically and critically to get us out of this situation. And I'm not saying that that is the best option, but it's the only option. It's the only thing that you can do and that's the way that they've created it. They've created it that way on purpose. They've created that division. So ultimately, in the end, it will have to be this one world system.
You know,
Because people
unfortunately,
will beg for it, Chris.
well,
That's the whole trick of the game, is that you make the people that don't want something eventually want it by essentially begging for it.
well, nobody wants to see it, but what you said there is going to be inevitable, whether you think it's right or wrong. It's happening. Like it's unavoidable. We're already headed in that direction. The question for me is, how dystopian do you want it to be? I'd rather not have drones policing the sky with pre-crime programming that if they believe you could commit a crime, they're going to zap you dead. I'd rather not have that. But if we can have some kind of balance where there's this harmonious system and we don't have to worry about killer dogs, robot dogs, and police drones, I'm cool with that. But I think there has to be a balance, and I think that's where a lot of people are concerned about, including myself. But again, I put myself outside of all of that and observe. I take the good and I don't take the bad. It's really all about a balancing act right now, and people seem to be unaware of that aspect of it.
Well, when you listen to people in their contact experiences, and this is me just, taking them at their word. I don't necessarily believe it, but based off of what they say, they essentially say that the entities that they contact and the entities that they talk to and the entities that have talked to them, when they're asked about like how they operate there, it's essentially a hive mind. It's essentially a one world order is what it is. And if they are super highly advanced and we look at them as like gods, if they exist, right? I'm not saying that they do, because I really have no idea. But if they do, and we look at them like that they're gods and that they're so much more highly technologically advanced, would that not be the ultimate conclusion for us as well?
I don't have the answer to that or any of these things, but I love gathering the information. When it comes to the whole extraterrestrial thing, it's very disappointing. I'll say this to throw that out there, because I started out, this was one of my favorite things, UFOs, aliens. I believed that there were, in fact, little green men coming from different planets, and they were probe ready, and all the narratives, the traditional narratives. I was there when I first started this, and it began to change and shift. And now it could be many things. And I have many considerations and possibilities of what people are experiencing with extraterrestrial contact. Now, for me, I've never experienced anything really paranormal besides that sleep paralysis, which, it's subjective. It could be paranormal, could be a psychosomatic, whatever. Again, perception thing. But I never had any paranormal experiences. And before I did this film, I had started using psychedelics, magic mushrooms, mostly for therapeutic purposes. And I did get information from the experiences, and that led me to explore it in a different way, as in initiating contact experiences with whatever can be communicated with out there. Again, I don't have an answer to what I was communicating with. I just for now call it the higher self. It could be many different things. It could be some sort of collective intelligence. It could be the secret societies beaming MK Ultra voices into my head. It could be, it could be many things, but I want to put myself through those experiences, because to me, that's probably the closest I'd get to really having any type of extraterrestrial contact experience. So I really immersed myself into very powerful psychedelic experiences with the intent of initiating that contact. And it did happen, and there were some very insane experiences and lots of, I believe, valuable information that I've gained. I could not tell you what that was providing the information, only that it was information that I wasn't aware of before the experience. And if it was locked up deep in my subconscious and that's the way I got it, that's great. But I couldn't tell you where that trigger came from. And the experiences became very synchronistic in nature, as in what I would experience during those events would connect things and kind of lead me in certain directions in my waking life. And that was, to me, my only confirmation that there's something else. And I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's, aliens, angels, demons, ourselves, archetypes, egregores, all options, all possibilities. But there is something that can communicate, provide information, guide us in certain directions. And I'm sure it can be weaponized and has been already. And that's where the danger comes in with any of this stuff. Is there's technology out there that can mimic to a T paranormal activity and experiences and voices in your head, whatever. So that's going to be explored more in part 2 of the film. But yeah, that's where I'm kind of at with that.
Well, there's also this remote viewing technique called perfect sight integration that allows a remote viewer to remote view a certain area or a location and essentially bilocate there and be able to move around objects and interact with the environment. So that is a really good explanation for what some might experience as poltergeist-like activity.
Right, yeah.
Might not even be a dead person or some sort of spirit or a ghost or a demon or whatever. It can literally be another human being that's alive right now in our reality. I mean, I think that makes
That's
a
what
lot
I'm
more
saying.
sense than
Like, what if, say, a person is meditating and they want to connect to the Ashtar command, and that's their intention, and they put that intention out there? Well, if we're at the level where any of our thoughts could be read, maybe, and there's some sort of secret military base down yonder that wants to perpetuate a little narrative, you put out that you want to speak to the Ashtar command, that stations be like, Jody's trying to contact the Ashtar command again, put in the program, and then boom, Nick Yard from the Black Duck fleet of Ashtar command starts talking to you and giving you the best damn information you ever heard that's going to save the planet. Next thing you know, you're on the conference tour, you're on Rogan, and things are blowing up for you. It's crazy.
Well, that's one of the things that Rogan has said before, is that the things that he's experienced under psychedelic influence, like mushrooms and stuff, outpace and overblow any alien that would land in his backyard. He's like, I've seen way wilder things than a UFO landing in my backyard, or a UFO landing on the White House lawn would not be shocking to me, because I've seen way crazier things on these types of psychedelics.
100%, man. I mean, I don't use magic mushrooms anymore. I quit after the last experience I had last year, which, actually it was last year. It was May the 4th. May the 4th be with you all. That was the last time I did. But that experience was so intense and terrifying, but really it was like a culmination of everything. It was like, this is what you've been looking for. Do not come back here. Do not come back here. Like, the message was very strong, but it just led me to a new level of spiritual understanding in a very physical way. Actually led me down the street to someone's house that was very profound. I don't have time to tell that whole story. I did it in a podcast. If you go to It Happened May the 4th, that's an episode I did about that final mushroom experience, which it was terrifying, but it really changed my life in many ways and kind of set me on a new trajectory and understanding of things. But yeah, I no longer do magic mushrooms because, as Mr. McKenna said, when you get the message, you hang up the phone. I got that message.
Message coming through loud and clear. All right, let's check out your trailer for your movie, and I'll have some more questions for you after.
Let's do it. The nature of this experience seems to always be just beyond the reach of our science, technology, and consciousness collective.
There's layers upon layers upon layers.
It does add such an element of mystery to this place.
Why are we here?
We're getting closer to the truth now.
There's too many people experiencing profound interactions with conscious entities.
I'm focused on the non-human intelligence contact phenomenon in dreams. Dreams involve interactions with real entities.
People are waking up paralyzed. They're sensing or seeing something very evil in the room.
I have experienced sleep paralysis. Shadow people start to appear.
I was taken from my earliest memories by non-human alien entities. More and more people are wanting to talk about these things.
A ufologist would say, well, that's obviously an extraterrestrial. And a paranormal researcher would say, well, that's a ghost. Well, what if it's all of those things and none of those things? The entities, the intelligence that were just beyond our understanding.
There seems to be something a little extra that can take forms of anything.
I can't believe what I've seen, but it continues on a daily basis. We're definitely not alone. UFOs, UAPs, portals opening up.
I live with all this supernatural stuff. You kind of grow up with that around here. You see a lot of strange things. I don't like to talk about skinwalkers too much.
I had an experience with a skinwalker entity.
People, they would say they would transform into bears, into wolves. There's these bad things that occur. Ghosts, UFOs, and all types of things coming from somewhere.
Our beliefs, our emotions, and our fears all seem to heavily influence the nature of these experiences.
There is so much more that we just don't have time for in this busy, loud, noisy life that we lead.
All of this is planned. Everything is synchronicity.
There's so much more out there. We really are picking up such a small percentage of the electromagnetic spectrum.
The world is an amazing place.
It feels like we're gods in training.
Sick. Yeah, that's Trey in there. I've copied what he said because he said that on my show before too, and I've repeated that, but I added on that if you take a cryptid researcher to a place, they're going to say that it's a cryptid too. So he went into if you take a ufologist to a place, they're going to come back and say that it's UFOs and aliens. If you take a paranormal investigator to a place, they're going to come back and say that it was paranormal. If you take a Bigfoot researcher to a place, they're going to come back and say that it's Bigfoot, right?
Right. And that's really where the title came from. There's doors of perception. There's multiple options that we can choose based on where we're at, based on our beliefs, based on our fears. And the craziest part is if we have a shift in that perception, we can open a new door and just completely change the way we view things and have a completely new experience.
I saw Ryan Burns in there. I've had Ryan on the show. He's a good friend of both of ours. Did you go to his property?
I did. Yeah, we spent a couple of nights out there.
Ooh, tell us about that experience. Whew.
That was weird, man. It was very, very weird. So UFOs, yeah, we saw whatever the orbs are, the lights shooting across the sky all night. Also, he said that we saw these purple lasers through the night vision, and he said that was black ops teams that surrounded the area that were watching us. And you could see them shining lasers and moving around like shadows, like moving around. He's like, yeah, those are the black ops guys. And they were only a few hundred feet away from us in the distance, just like watching us watch UFOs, bro. It was crazy. So we got that going on. We got the UFOs shooting around. And right when we got like to Utah, to that within about 40 miles of his ranch, we felt just nasty. It was a weird just feeling. It was icky. It was like I didn't want to be there. Like the whole time I was so uncomfortable. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Jim didn't sleep for 2 nights. It was just such a weird feeling. Ryan took us on a ride to the petroglyphs out there. We saw some incredible rock carvings and petroglyphs, and I got, included some of the footage of that in the film. And he also took us to walks all around the property during the day. We hit I actually put my foot on the property of Skinwalker Ranch, which I wasn't supposed to, but that's okay. But his property butts up to Skinwalker Ranch, so we got as close as we could. We were able to see some very interesting images from some of the cameras that Ryan has that manages to overlook a little bit of the ranch. And okay, since this isn't Ryan saying this, is me saying this. Ryan has nothing to do with this, but there were these weird cages in the Skinwalker Ranch, and they say that they put the livestock in there to attract the UFOs, right? So I heard from someone that they actually have put people in there, and they may not have been completely willing at times because of the maybe screams that he's heard before. But again, this is me. I heard this around about, no confirmation on any of that. So who knows on that one? But dude, the stories he told me were crazy. I'll tell you one of the craziest things he told me, that his security guy calls him one night and he's like, "You got, I think, 3 guys rummaging around your trailer out here. What you want me to do?" He's like, "Get the gun and take care of it." So his security guy grabs whatever firearm he has. I think it was a rifle, and he goes out there and he approaches, and there's 3 guys rummaging through, like right outside the trailer, one of the trailers on Ryan's property. And he yells at him to freeze. And when he does, this is what he said, man, they all sat down like canines at the same time and looked up at him with eye shine. And then he said, he's like, "You freeze," or what so yelled something else at him. And then they started lunging at him like dogs. He starts picking them off. He said he hits each one of them a couple of times, and eventually they turn around and start running the other way. But he said they didn't even look phased by the shots. They started running and they leaped over a fence like a dog jumping over a fence, and we're gone. The craziest part is the next day, there was reports of these 3 members of the Ute tribe that died of gunshot wounds, all found in 3 separate locations, all found for some reason behind locked doors. So that is most likely the dudes that got capped by Ryan's security guy, and that is absolutely nuts, man.
What?
Yeah. So it was pretty crazy. And
so they looked like human beings, but they acted like canines?
And they had eye shine that humans don't normally have. That, canine eye shine.
That's crazy. Wild, dude.
Yeah, dude.
That's wild.
They had a few of those stories with these, people that act like dogs, or dogs that don't exactly fit the description of dogs, like some zombie dogs that shapeshift into like different things. Their limbs change lengths and things like that. Also humanoids that seem to appear differently and shapeshift into animals. So he's seen some of the most wild shit out there.
Zombie dogs.
Zombie dogs.
Zombie dog.
Yeah.
Well, what would be the explanation of them being behind locked doors? Do you think that would be more of like a projection? Because that's what I was mentioning with the perfect site integration thing. It may be so deep into a meditative state that you're able to just
project yourself.
bilocate yourself and turn into essentially an animal. That's what I think.
That's the whole theory.
Is.
That's the whole theory that also was presented in the movie. We had a member of the Ute tribe. He was talking about the process of supposedly how to become a skinwalker. You commit some sort of horrible atrocity, kill a family member or something like that, and then you have these ritual where you wear the animal of the pelt, the pelt of the animal you want to become, and you go, like you said, into a meditative state in a room, and you project, and that's what people see is you projecting yourself as whatever that animal is. Now, as far as these guys died of gunshot wounds, that's crazy. If it can somehow affect your physical form, what happens out there, I don't know, but it's pretty wild, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't be 100% sure on exactly how it works, but I mean that would make that makes more sense than, like, you know, physically shape-shifting or physically turning into something. It would be more along the lines of like a projection, and you're taking on the version that you have in your mind as to what animal it is.
Dude, to me, that's scarier than if it was like just a paranormal manifestation. Like, that's somebody with intention of doing some messed up stuff that has some major control over that shit. That, to me, is more terrifying than just like a ghost or something.
Yeah, it is, and it's really scary. And that's been my contention for a while looking into the Skinwalker and like this paranormal stuff and poltergeist-like activity. Yeah. I think it makes more sense, the most sense, that it's that it's like a bilocation projection of somebody that's in a really deep meditative state. I mean, we know how remote viewing like worked in the evolving nature of like remote viewing, and I think that that's like the ultimate, like the end goal of remote viewing is essentially bilocating your physical body. Now that can be your own physical body, or you can take the shape or the form of anything you want, essentially. I feel like that would be the master form of that type of technology.
100%.
Can't prove it, obviously. Can't prove it, but
right.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure the level of knowledge that we have integrated with forms of technology, we can probably achieve some massively spooky things, because if any of the things that they were doing in the 60s and 70s has been expanded upon, the possibilities are pretty amazing. And I think that, you know, the levels of technology that is not available to the public is much more sophisticated than anything that we've ever could understand, really. And when integrated with things like psychic remote viewing, I mean, who knows what's possible with that stuff.
Well, it's another thing that is becoming really popular now is the phrase, in which you have it in your movie, is NHI, right? Non-human intelligence. Mm-hmm. But it's another thing that literally coincides at this very moment with our technology and with AI, because AI is a non-human intelligence.
Well, to me, I have to go back to ancient accounts. I have to go back to the paranormal and experiences that have been documented before, although we can't talk to those people. We can't find out if it's, you know, real or anything like that. That to me says that before we had access to these level of technology, this was capable. Now, whether it's still, like you said, a person doing this and projecting himself to cause these events to happen, or something else, to me, I still couldn't, you know, I have no idea, but the exploration continues.
Yeah, it's just like, it's word games, it's word magic, and they use a really common phrase that can mean several different things. And that's a really popular one that's popped up recently. I think there was two gentlemen from that movie with the Fox guy, James Fox, I think is his
Oh,
name. James Fox.
Phenomena.
The Phenomena, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan had two guys on there that was a part of the documentary, and they were talking about non-human intelligence and like all that. And I'm like, well, this is just so interesting because right now we're seeing this gigantic boom in AI, which is non-human intelligence. It's not a human, it's an artificial non-human intelligence. So whenever someone says, oh, well, because one guy was essentially saying, what was one of the more, frightening things that you heard or whatever? And he was like, oh, well, the NHI, the non-human intelligence. And I'm like, well, I mean, come on, like, who's to say that there's even anybody in any of the craft, right? It could be operated by non-human intelligence. It could be a drone, and that's what drones are. Drones are non-human intelligence. I mean, they have AI drones. That's pretty much what all of the drones were over New Jersey. They were all AI drones.
Yeah, unfortunately,
operated by non-human intelligence, operated by AI.
Yeah, the whole UFO thing's been just turned on its head and against us and weaponized. And these people, whether they are aware that they're being used to prop up these narratives, NHI, UAP, these new terms and the theories that go along with it, whether they're aware that they're being used to push out these narratives or not, they are. And they present it as if this is the way, that it is, and they have some sort of deep understanding that it's an extraterrestrial, when in reality, I don't think these people have any idea, although they may have an understanding enough to manipulate whatever is occurring during these experiences. I think there's always some level of occurrence that is beyond human understanding, or should be. And I think that some of these nerd dorks need to stop messing with a lot of that stuff, but that's just me.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for coming on, brother. Really appreciate it. Can you let people know one more time where they can watch the pre-release of your documentary before it becomes available on streaming platforms?
Yes, sir. Thank you again for having me on, sir. Always enjoy the conversations. You guys can find it. The easiest way, just go to our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. Click on that Learn More banner about the Forbidden documentary. From there, you can rent it for $2.99, purchase 1080p for $7, or a 4K version for $12. Trailers on YouTube and Rumble, and we really appreciate any of you guys supporting us by purchasing or renting the film. It helps tremendously with our promotion and any upcoming events and the production of our part 2 of Doors of Perception. So thank you all for that. Thank you again, brother. Always amaze titties.
Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And the link to watch the pre-release of his brand new documentary, Doors of Perception, is in the description of this video. Thanks everyone so much for being here. Everyone in the chat, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to hit the channel and the algorithms. Subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. All of my links to everything you need is also in the description of this video. And we'll see you guys next time. Chris, stay with me, brother.